Laird Street. And that across the way is the Celtic Supporters Club, Greenock branch, where Elaine Doyle spent her last night of socialising. She went to a disco in there, which I believe was on the ground floor. Sorry pal. So I was told by the guy in there, the guy at the bar who's serving me. Well, first of all, let me start from the start. When I was looking around the foyer there and filming, where the sort of coat stand was, I was trying to establish if that was the lowest floor of the building, because from what I've read in the crime reports and the police reports, the disco where she spent her last night socialising was on the lowest floor of that building. And I was just trying to establish where the foyer was that was the ground floor, was that the lowest floor, or was there a basement? But I couldn't see an entrance to a basement, I could only see an entrance to an upstairs, and that seemed to be closed off. And while I was looking around the foyer, a guy from the bar came and got me and asked what I was doing, explained what I was doing, and he said that in 1986 the disco would have been held in that sort of bar area that I walked through, that you saw me filming in. That is the lowest floor of the building. And he said in 1986 the disco would have been there, which is consistent with the police report. So I think we've filmed the sort of room where she spent her last night dancing and her last night socialising. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to film the walk from the Celtic Club to the burger stand where she was last seen eating with friends. That was the last sighting of her alive. Now leaving the Celtic Club on Laird Street, and I believe she walked from here towards, I suppose, what is the centre of Greenock, to a place called Cathcart Square, which is a famous square right in the centre of Greenock. And it's all, not only is it a famous square in the centre of Greenock, it runs adjacent to Cathcart Street, and the burger van, I'm told, used to be parked adjacent to 6 Cathcart Street. So if we walked, and I've got that in the old sat nav, so this is the way she would have walked. You can see the centre of Greenock's down there. Celtic Club's only about a third of a mile from the centre of Greenock. About a third of a mile between the Celtic Club and the centre of Greenock. Now, one important thing is, you think about a night out, most folk after they've been on a night out with friends, they've probably been drinking all day. As well as drinking all day, you get hungry, need something to soak up the alcohol. It's very common for friends at the end of a night out to sort of go and get something to eat afterwards and congregate and talk about the night. Normally when you go out to a club like that, you're with a group of about, especially if you're girls are a lot more social than men. The female of the species is a lot more social. Girls tend to hang about in packs. They're a lot more pack animals than women. Women, when they go on a night out, it tends to be about at least 3 or 4 of them, and out of those 4 women, after a night on the drink, at least one of them will be hungry and want to go to the burger van in the centre of town And even if you're not particularly hungry, if for safety reasons and social reasons you'll want to chum your friend to the van so you can sit and chat to them about the night that you've had and spend a bit of time socialising and chatting about the evening you've had. Women like gossip like that, don't they? So she would have walked down here. Obviously not from the area, so I'm guessing at this point. Not really sure this is the best route, but I'm just following the... Maybe I've not got it on walking, maybe that's it. No, I do have it on walking. Saying walking the best route's actually down here. So let's try and retrace Elaine's steps from that night. I mean, all I'm doing is following the Google Maps route. They wouldn't have had Google Maps in 1986, but they would have had local knowledge, the girls that were out that night. As well as having local knowledge, they would have known local shortcuts. I obviously don't have that advantage. But this looks fairly, where I'm walking now, looks like a sort of local shortcut place, doesn't it? This building in front of us, the big sandstone building, that's where the square is at the centre of town. I've been up before and I kind of recognise that. This is obviously a local underpass that takes you there. On a dark night, this probably wouldn't have been the safest place to walk in the 80s for 4 young women that were on a night out, but if there's 4 of them, I suppose it's safety in numbers, I guess. I don't like anybody to walk through here. Dark night, but I'm doing this in the middle of summer and it's light. I suppose she was doing it in the middle of summer as well. It was June, it was at the time of the 1986 World Cup in Mexico. I believe from what I've read in the police reports it was the opening weekend of the World Cup, so there would have been a lot of excitement and a lot of vibrance about the town. This is 40 years later. This looks like a sort of convenient local shortcut that someone who was local, what she was a local girl, would have known. But no doubt she would have known the shortcut to the centre of town from the club. And I think this is almost in the centre now. And this is where the burger van would have been. So the police report that I read said the burger van was parked directly adjacent to the curb, so here outside the historic entrance, the historic main entrance of Well Park Mid-Kirk Church, which is here. This would be the central steps. It said it was adjacent to the central steps, so we've got 3 sets of steps. So central steps is going to be the middle one. We've got 3 doors. Central door, the main door, is going to be the middle one. It said it was parked outside the historic entrance of Well Park Mid-Kirk. directly adjacent to curbside. These are the central stairs, that's the main entrance. And there's curbside, the burger van would have been parked here. It says once getting here, her and her friends, they got a burger. They sat on these middle steps. If you think about it, if you've had a night out, you've been dancing in heels if you're a woman, you're probably going to have tired legs. So you're going to want to sit down and eat your food. And this is quite a convenient place to sit down. You just had a night out with your friends, you're hungry, you've been on the drink all day. You sit down here, you have your burger, your chips and your cheese. And from what I saw in the Crime Watch video, Elaine sat directly where I'm sitting now. She'll probably put her can of juice here as well, like I'm doing. Probably sat here, ate her burger and chips. Her pals were sat here and here. Just been on a night out. You don't just want to eat your food because you're hungry because you've been on the drink all day. You also want to take the weight off, especially if you're in heels, and put your feet up and look at this beautiful historic square. Chat about the boys that you've went with on that night, the things that you've got up to as girls, the giggles you've had, the fun you've had, and soak up some of the alcohol before you walk home. Because they were relatively young girls. I think she had only celebrated her 16th birthday that weekend, so she was young to be drinking, but we all did it at that age. But she probably didn't tell her parents she was going to be drinking if she was only 16. And so another reason for coming to get some food before going home is not only because you're hungry because you've been on a drink all day, but it's also because you're wanting to soak up a bit of the alcohol so you don't go home too drunk to your parents. So we've been in the club, we walked from the burger van where she came to get some food to replenish her system after a long night on the drink and soak up some of the alcohol so she's not too drunk going back to her parents. We've discussed the sort of layout and the chat with our pals. Now I will do the walk from here to her home, where she got to within 50 yards of before she was pulled into an alleyway and strangled. So let's walk to her home now. So I'm standing exactly where the burger van was. Another thing that I read, and the reason I've just filmed that plaque, is the middle of the van was directly in line with the plaques, directly adjacent to curbside. So the van, the bit where you would have got served the burger, if I was the burger man serving the burgers, I would have been standing about here. I would have had a good view of Elaine and her friends eating the burgers on the steps there. But I've just put into the sat-nav 28 Argowan Street, where Elaine lived and where she was killed, within 50 yards of it. And I'm going to do that walk now, from here to the place where she was killed, and that will complete the walk of her final night. It's only 0.8 miles away, so it shouldn't take very long. Just got it on to make sure it's on walking. So we've got 0.8 miles. But it looks like I'm going down here. I think I might be wrong. Find these sat navs. That seems to be getting further away from it, doesn't it? It's definitely back down this way. So it's looking like it's directing me to going up here. So let's go up here then. So Elaine would have come up, there's where she was sitting with her friends and where the burger van was, and she would have come up here. Again, the route that I'm following, the route that I followed from the club to the burger van, and the route that I'm following from the burger van to her house, is the route that Google Maps is telling me to take. The actual route she took isn't specified in the crime reports, so I've got to rely on Google Maps. Google Maps just plots, I suppose, the most... we've got a snag. Google Maps obviously plots the most convenient way, but someone with local knowledge like her, and she was quite a savvy girl, might have known a better way. Now in 1986, it's wanting me to go up here now, in 1986 this might have been a valid thoroughfare. It does look, it comes up adjacent the side of the church where the burger van was, and there's obviously... The 4 friends accompanied her to the burger van. It's the top of Bank Street. The 4 friends accompanied her to the burger van, so there was safety in her numbers when she went to the burger van, which provided a bit of safety and shelter when she walked through that underpass that we spoke about. However, after the burger van, the friends all split up because they lived in different directions. I think the route we are going takes you into the West End of Greenock, and their friends lived in the East End or city centre, some of them I think, so they split up. So at this point, remember, that big hill that we walked up there, it was hard for me to walk up in trainers. God knows what it would have been like for her in heels. And she's on her own at this point. And remember, this is midnight. Time now, as we're getting to this stage of the journey, is about midnight. It's sort of 1:15 midnight at that time, so it's pitch dark. Even in June, it's pitch dark. And she's a girl in a dress and heels, coming back for a night out drunk, and it's dark. She's on her own, probably getting quite cold as well, and there's a bit of a wind. 0.8 miles now. So they come along here. Now the guy that got arrested for it, they reckon, well they know, he had been at the same disco at the Celtic Club as what she was. I didn't read this part in the crime reports, but I heard a rumour from someone that I spoke to, which is just hearsay, so you must treat it as hearsay. But the man that was accused of killing her had made advances towards her that night, and the advances were rejected. Sometimes when men have their advances rejected, they don't deal with it in the best possible, mature, logical way. And they take that out in aggression and anger. And I think, you know, that's maybe, was it a jealousy killing? Did he make advances to her and they were rejected? His friends, so he's pursued her. And if he was at the same disco, you know, she's now quite a bit away from the disco. It's a dark night. He must have pursued her from the disco and followed her at a distance, which would have been quite easy to do, because if you look at the route that we've travelled, on a dark night there's lots of little alleyways, nooks and crannies that you could hide in. Just watch her from a distance, and every time she turns round, step into a doorway. But the worrying thing is, if the theory that he pursued her from the disco, if it was a jealousy killing and he pursued her from the disco, the worrying thing is that, you know, she sat with her friends and ate a meal at the burger van for some time. He must have been watching her. If that's true, he must have followed her and her mates from the club, sat and watched them eating their burger together, then decided which one he was going to follow home. The rest of the mates walked off together and she walked off on her own. So if he did follow the four mates from the club and watched them eat their meal, deciding which one he was going to pursue and follow in his jealousy killing, he's not going to pick the group of friends that walk off together. He's not going to pick the three friends that walk off together and pursue them, because then he's going to have three of them to deal with. He's going to have three of them to tackle. That's going to be a lot more difficult. 3 against 1. The odds would maybe be in the women's favour there. So what he's done is the cowardly thing. He's pursued the one that walked off on her own and left the 3 that walked off together. And that just goes to show you, if you're on a night out, girls, never let one of your friends walk off on their own. There's always safety in numbers. So we're now 0.6 miles away. But my battery's going to last. I've only got 18%. Oh god. It's saying it's going to take me 14 minutes to walk the rest. 18% should last 14 minutes, it should be alright. So she's come down here, and then she's come down here. God. The time we've been filming this, we've only covered 0.2 miles, because it was 0.8 when we started, and it's now 0.6. So we've covered 0.2 miles, which is 1/5 of a mile. God, I must be really unfit if that's all I've covered in that time. No, he's pursued her for quite a way at this time. This is quite a walk. She obviously wanted to save money on a taxi because she was right in the middle of town. She could have easily got a taxi. She maybe didn't have the money for it, or she wanted to. Maybe on the night out she wanted to save a bit of money, but by not paying the taxi, so she'd have more money to buy drinks. .5 miles now. I mean, if this is, I mean, I don't know that this is the route she took, because I'm only following the route that Google Maps thinks is the most convenient. The roads and the pedestrian areas may have changed since 1986. The case is now 40 years and 1 month old. A lot of things have happened. It's perhaps possible that everything's changed now. So 0.4, and we're getting very, very close now. It's 9 minutes, it's saying. I mean, as if, like I say, as this is the route she took, it's quite a substantial walk. And if the guy, like the police theory said in court, he did pursue her from the club and he did follow her from the club, he's pursued her some way. Because it's not only the walk, that we're at the burger van for a substantial period of time. So he must have followed them from the club, sat and watched them eat their food, and then pursued her all this way. You know, that's a man on a mission. So up here, I'm not walking very fast at all. It was 0.8 miles when we started and we're only down to 0.3. So I've walked 0.5 miles. 0.5 in decimals, a half in fractions, so I've walked half a mile. And all this time I'm walking, and I am out of puff. This is a walk and a half. It makes you wonder why a young girl would have walked all this way after a night out. I mean, it's hard enough for me doing this walk, but you've got to think a young girl in heels, drunk, on a dark night with a man pursuing her. You know, that's a hell of a walk. A little bit unsure about where it wants me to go here. It's saying 0.2 miles now, so we're close, chaps. We're close. It's looking like it's wanting me to walk up here. Oh God. 0.2. This boy's pursued her a long way. You'd think someone that was being, another thing is, you think someone that was being pursued all this way, you know, pursuing someone over a short distance is hard. Like I say, pursuing someone without being seen over a short distance, I would say is hard. Right? But to do it over the distance that he's done it and not being seen, that's really difficult. So I wonder if she knew she was being pursued, because that must have been terrifying. You know, not only is it a young girl doing a walk that's hard enough for me to do, she's doing it in heels when she's drunk in the pitch dark, and if she knows she's being pursued at the same time, that must have been terrifying. That must have been terrifying. She can't run, you're in heels. That's another thing, so if you do know you're being pursued, it must be terrifying. I can only assume she didn't know she was being pursued. The witnesses that did see her didn't say she was running. She knew she was being pursued, she would have been trying to run. But I think I read the guy that did it was in the military. In the military, part of their training, part of the basic training is, you know, tactics where you pursue a target without being seen. So he obviously had military training to be able to chase her without her being alerted to it. So let's go. Right, so going along here, and we're now 170 yards. from 28 Argowan Street, where she lived. Looks like quite a nice neighbourhood. I mean, there's a bowling club a couple of 100 yards from her house. I wonder why he waited this long. Because I think he knew her as well. He was in her brother's class at the school, the guy that killed her. I think that he knew her. So he must have known where she lived. Why would you wait to kill her? I mean, that's a particularly narcissistic thing, that he waited till he was 50 yards from her house. Waited till he was 50 yards from her house before pulling her down an alleyway and killing her. I mean, why would you do that? Your chances of getting caught outside her house, because he raped her as well. He raped her before he killed her, so your chances of getting caught, you know, if a woman's being murdered and raped, the chances are she's going to scream. And if she screams 50 yards from her home, then the chances are a neighbour that knows her or a family member will see and come to her aid. Surely if you're thinking about raping and killing the target, you're going to pull her in. You know, if you think about the distance that we've walked, there's hundreds of little alleyways and doorways that you could have pulled her into before now. But he didn't. He's waited till he was 50 yards. That's narcissistic in itself. So I think we're here. So just to show you how close she got to her house that night. There's 28 where Elaine lived. And right down here there's this little hut. And this little hut is the 49F Greenock Squadron Air Corps training hut. I don't think in 1986 that gate was there, from what I've seen from the crime scene photos. So she's probably walking up this side of the road now. She's crossed to go to her house, which is just there. She's come past this alleyway and she's been dragged into the alleyway. And she was raped. She was thrown on the floor there. Said she was raped and murdered. Directly adjacent to the opening of the alleyway, which would have just been on the soil there. She would have been raped and murdered down there. And her poor family would have been in the house right next to it, right there. Less than 50 yards away while their daughter was being raped and murdered. So I've seen, sometimes when you're looking into something like that, you see contradicting evidence. I've seen some reports that say she was raped and murdered immediately at the opening to the lane, which I suppose would just be on the other side of that gate. But I've also seen another one that says that, I don't know if you can see down the bottom there, at the end of the lane it turns into a sort of little cul-de-sac, open land, it says in the police reports, and there's some lock-up garages down there. And I've seen some reports that say her body was found at 7:30 that morning, adjacent to that lock-up garage, where the lane becomes open land down there. So, don't know entirely which one's true. Sometimes you see contradicting evidence and we can't go into take a look because it's all locked up. So I suppose we've done all we can.